Welcome to the Keeping It Teal podcast. We are the CCU sports podcast that truly keeps it teal 24/7. I'm your host, Hunter Santiago, and I'm joined today by my two co-hosts, AJ Moran and Jay Largent. Y'all, this is an interesting episode because right now we don't have a game to cover. Next week, we will be covering the San Jose State Bowl game for Coastal Carolina and what to expect with the opponent that we have coming up here as we get into bowl season. But today we're going to start out with what everyone's been talking about on Twitter and social media, the transfer portal, the giveth, the taketh, the good, the bad. We're going to start out with our Teal portal discussion for the taketh, the guys who are unfortunately leaving Coastal Carolina for what some believe are greener pastures and what others don't realize is the grass isn't always greener on the other side, or one would say tealer on the other side. But anyways, the biggest thing that we discussed on the last Keeping It Teal podcast was the Teal Collective and them disbanding on December 31st of this year. But there may be a chance that that's not the case. A lot has developed over the last couple days and even you could say week since we've had our last podcast put out there. So Jay, what can you tell Teal Nation about what's going on with the Teal Collective?
Obviously, what I'm hearing is they're very disappointed being at disband, but I've been hearing people are coming together and iron some things out, getting us back up and running where we're supposed to be so we can be able to compete with these teams for years to come in the Sun Belt, because if we don't have a good NIL, we won't be able to compete with teams like JMU, App State, you name it, anybody in the group of five, we won't be able to compete with them.
Absolutely. We need NIL. We're not like your USC, your Clemson, right? We're not going to have like major NIL money for Coastal Carolina, but that doesn't mean that we can't have one of the better NIL collectives of the Sun Belt. We want to strive for that. We want to be that program in the Sun Belt. So we need to do that in all areas. And that also includes having a lot of our alumni from all walks of life coming together and putting money towards getting the best possible players we can get, right? The goal is to get as many Power 5 guys who haven't got a chance to take snaps at the Power 5 level. Most guys, if they haven't taken snaps at the Power 5 level, odds are they're probably not going to get many other Power 5 offers through the portal unless they're a big name guy. So that's your ideal target, right? Like, it's nice to get guys from the FCS level and the D2 and the D3 level to come to Coastal Carolina with talent, but it's not always guaranteed that these guys are going to pan out, but you're more likely to hit a home run with a guy from the Power 5 level. So it is interesting. But all right, thank you, Jay, for all that information about the Teal Collective. This is something that's going to be developing over time that I think the Keeping It Teal podcast is going to keep an eye on and kind of bring more news to you guys in future podcasts if anything else develops at the NIL collective level. All right, so when it comes to the take of the Teal portal, we kind of discussed like the major shunts who had hit the portal last podcast. We discussed how McCall, Guest, Beasley, and Killen all hit. Right after we submitted our podcast a couple weeks ago, Jared Brown hit the portal. Some may argue that is the biggest loss that we had in the portal this year. I think that is true. I think Grayson McCall is a major loss for us, but most probably thought that had he had played this full season, he probably would have entered the NFL draft. While I don't know him well enough to even be able to say such a thing, I think more than likely that would be the more likely prediction is if he had completed his season healthy with Coastal, he probably would have declared for the NFL draft. But unfortunately, due to that horrible injury against Arkansas State, where that player should have been thrown out for targeting, it ruined his season. And I'm actually very happy for him. Our big development on that is Grayson McCall is now part of the Wolfpack at NC State. He is one of our few guys so far who have gotten an offer and accepted. Brown, the guy that we just mentioned, Jared Brown, our wide receiver, our star wide receiver, he is going to University of South Carolina. He got out in and out of the portal very quick. So it'll be interesting to see where guys like Guest, Beasley, and Killen go. I know some of the other guys in the portal who haven't really taken too many snaps at Coastal have already gone elsewhere. I know the guys will bring that up as I pass this over to them. But yeah, no, that's what's been going on right now. It's been very upsetting. We've had about, I want to say 20 to 23 guys enter the portal on Coastal side. I know after last year, a lot of fans were concerned that we lost so many guys going into the Tim Beck era. I certainly didn't expect us to lose another large batch of our guys after Tim Beck's first season, after, we're bowl eligible 4 years in a row. Sure, it's not like the most ideal year. Sure, that JMU game was absolutely awful, and you can look into our thoughts on that in previous episodes. But overall, we're still bowl eligible. Tim Beck has a lot to work on this offseason, but this was yet very disappointing that we lost this many guys. I'm gonna throw it over to Jay. Who are some guys I've missed out on bringing up where they went to, some thoughts on the guys that I've already talked about, and just any other thoughts that you have, Jay.
I just know we've had a lot of kids that didn't see a lot of snaps at Coastal, but were like big scout team players. I mean, we've had a couple kids go to Jacksonville State. We had one go to Incarnate World to better themselves and also get them more playing time and to develop. So we wish them nothing but the best here at the Keeping It Till podcast. AJ, what do you got on our transfers?
Yeah, so for me, we talked about all these guys transferring. It takes a hit to our program, but as much as it, takes a hit to us, it's important that we go and we kind of get guys that they're not going to fill their shoes directly, but we get guys that are going to again continue growing our program. A lot of the guys we've lost, the main concerns are a lot of the names we've been throwing around of the guys that have been big time impact players for us. But I don't necessarily blame most of them in these scenarios, right? They're going to pursue better opportunities for the most part, right? Jared Brown going to South Carolina, that's an SEC program. And the SEC now is going to have new additions coming in next year, right? So that's big time for him. And we talked about how they have gone crazy in the portal. They've really upgraded, especially offensively in the past couple of days. And then Grayson going to NC State, he had a couple, visits and stuff like that as well. And he believes that's a fit for him, right? A North Carolina guy, has already kind of known the school and again ACC play. So for them, it seems like it's the best move, and I agree with them. I don't think that it's a move, and we don't hate them for that move. Obviously, we would love for them to stay here, but we don't have anything against them for that. But like you're saying, Jay, there's a lot of guys, besides those big names that are in the portal, right? I think we said there's 20 plus guys leaving Coastal, going somewhere else, and you have to find people to replace them. Not all those guys are starting guys, but there are people that make an impact nonetheless. It's going to make things interesting because now this coaching staff has to go back to work, and they're going to have to go find guys for next year.
Yeah, guys, the giveth part of this, transfer portal is probably one of the most depressing times of the year for most fans, especially at the group of five level of college football. And even some of your power five schools go through absolute hell when transfer portal comes around. We're going to talk more about how that, affects bowl season coming up here in another segment during this episode. But let's shift over to a slightly more positive topic when it comes to the portal. We're gonna go into the giveth section, right? We talked about the taketh and how it hurts. Let's go into the giveth, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, we have Noah Kim from Michigan State, our biggest commit so far to Coastal Carolina. He is a 3-star prospect, Jay. He was a 3-star prospect coming into college. He had multiple major offers, but eventually ended up at Michigan State. This year, he played 5 different games, including games against Maryland, Iowa, and Washington. Yes, if you look up those games, the outcomes were not ideal, but, he was starting for a Michigan State team that was in shambles, going through their issues with losing their head coach during the season, as well as just Michigan State's roster was just absolutely awful. So we're looking forward to having a Power 5 quarterback make his transition over to Coastal Carolina. And if he does win the job, then hey, he's going to have the support until he proves us wrong for sure. But we're also looking forward to him competing with the quarterbacks that we currently have, which we'll discuss later. We also have AJ Williams from Wake Forest, safety. He has 1 interception so far in his starts for Wake Forest. And I know AJ and Jay might have some stats on that in a little bit. We also have, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Jay, what's the name of this wide receiver we got from Hampton, Sydney?
Jahamadad Whitby.
Oh, Jahamadad Whitby. And then we have wide receiver Trey Taylor from Tyler Junior College. And then Jalen Hampton from Trinity Valley Community College. So you might think, Teal Nation, who was the last three guys? Like you heard Michigan State, you heard Wake Forest, you're like Power Five guys coming over. This is pretty good. Hey, these guys could end up being pretty good players for Coastal Carolina, but they are coming from the lower levels of Division 2 and 3, I believe. So it's definitely going to be a big transition for guys like them. But hey, I wish them nothing but the best. And I'm grateful to have some guys through the portal. But hopefully we can get some more Power Five and Group of Five commits. Right now we're sitting in the lower end of like the amount of guys who came through. If you look about a couple weeks after Tim Beck's hire, we were getting guys 4-star, 3-star from lots of different schools. You have your Vascos. We got multiple different tight ends who are 3-stars and 4-stars from Rutgers, from Notre Dame, from UNC with Kendall Carr. So, I mean, realistically, you would assume in Tim Beck's second year, the portal success would go up, not down. So I'm really anticipating seeing kind of where we go from here. I'm not upset, but we need to start seeing this staff kick into gear, getting some more transfer guys. I'm excited about our freshman class, but the unfortunate thing is we've been losing commits too. Something that a lot of podcasts and social media accounts for Coastal Carolina have not been covering. We've been losing guys as well as we've been gaining guys. We've been losing a lot more guys than you would expect, and this is supposed to be one of our biggest freshman classes incoming this year and potentially next year as well. So it's something to keep an eye out for. We need to hit the portal way harder than we are right now. Maybe some things are coming from Beck and crew, but until then, I'm cautiously optimistic. What are some things we currently need right now? We need like 3 more wide receivers. Pinckney is going to the NFL. I'm almost certain. I don't think he's declared yet, but I'm pretty sure that's a lock at this point. As we discussed earlier in this podcast, Jared Brown's going to USC of South Carolina, not the one in California. And then, a couple of Mobley hit the portal, and we may have lost another wide receiver. I'm not entirely sure, but all I know is, listen, the vast majority of our starting wide receivers are gone. Jamison Tucker is the guy I'm most optimistic about in the future. Like, if you've watched him play this season towards the later half of the season when he's got more reps, the dude can cook. He cooks DBs. So I'm excited for him to have a chance to get more reps in next season, but we still need to put guys around him. For a guy like Noah Kim, right, who's coming down from the Michigan State team, if he does end up being our starter, or if it's Blake Boda, or if it's Vasco, at the end of the day, you need to give them weapons. I mean, look, Vasco played fairly well this season, right? He had some good games, but guess what? He had Jared Brown. He had Sam Pinckney. You take away his best receivers. I mean, look at what happened when we had them against JMU. Got slaughtered. You lose those 2 guys. How is Vasco going to be able to compete against JMU next year? Even with them losing guys and their head coach, they're still going to be a threat to us next year. So it's just something to think about. We need some offensive linemen for whoever our quarterbacks that starts ends up being. We need some running backs. We're losing one to graduation, and then we lost one to the portal. We could use some extra defensive line help. The guys this year played fairly well, but we could use a little bit extra depth, I guess is the better word to say for it. We need some linebackers. We don't got Killen anymore. We don't got the guys we've had in previous years of Teddy and Silas. We still have Shane Bruce for one more year, but we could use another linebacker to complement him and his skill sets. And then we could use a couple more corners as well. So there's a lot that needs to be addressed going into next year, right? We've lost 20 some players through the portal, not to mention the fact that, if you look at this season and the struggles we've had, we clearly needed more players this season. So not only do we need more players just to get better, we need more players to recover from the amount of players that we lost. So this portal season has been rough. I've seen a lot of fans affected by it. We have some of our super fans, like Brian Quigley, is very supportive of where Coastal's at, and we got to be a good fan regardless of the sadness that we're in right now. We got to fight forward and know that Coastal's going to see better days, and I do believe that. But right now, still doesn't look super sexy, and we got a long ways to go during this portal season. Hopefully after the bowl game we'll see some more guys jumping into Coastal Carolina through the portal versus out. So something to look forward to. Let me pass it over to the guys. I've said a lot so far about the giveth and the taketh. Let's go with AJ. What do you got?
Yeah, so the big things to highlight here, right, is I'm a very critical person. It's tough to tell with a lot of these guys, especially the bottom 3 that we talked about, like the junior college, community college guys. You never really know what you're getting with them. Yeah, they were really good and they had great production at their level that they played at, and they probably look good at tape. but it's very different. It's a whole different world when you go and you step up against some of these defensive backs and some of these players at the Division 1 level. So they're always, I call them suspects, because you never know how they're going to pan out. Sometimes they're great, right? Like I like to use a lot of the baseball guys, for example, right? Graham Brown's one of those guys that came from like a community college background and has been really good for us, and then there's other times where they just don't pan out, and that's just how it works. I have always been a guy that's more of a fan of getting the Power Five guys that have something to prove, something to fight for. Not saying the community guys don't, the community college guys don't, but the Power Five guys, right, highly recruited out of high school, and on the tape, those schools saw that they are really, really good, and either somebody beat them out for the position, or maybe they got hurt, or something happened where they lost the job or they didn't get the job. Then they take it a step down, and then they're on their redemption tour, right? They're right. They want to get back there. They're on a redemption tour. So I like investing in those types of guys. Again, Noah Kim, I'm excited about. Again, you look at the numbers, it's a little bit tough to tell because the Michigan State as a program had a rough year last year. On top of the teams that we talked about that they played, right? Big Ten is a gauntlet of a conference, and their non-conference they played Washington, who obviously now is competing for a national title. So in the limited reps he's got there, he looked pretty good, but it's tough to tell against those top end teams. And again, now he's taking a step down. So we'll see if he gets the job, how he can deliver maybe against lesser competition. And then again, right, AJ Williams, Wake Forest has a Power Five name, but obviously didn't win the starting job there. Is not starting there, right? He's coming down, looking for a redemption tour. So I like those guys. However, like we just talked about, there's been a lot of taketh. There's not been much giveth so far. We have criticized maybe the coaching staff a little bit as far as we have to do a better job. There's still a lot of needs. Okay, cool. We got another quarterback. That's great, considering we lost two, right? Okay, we got another defensive back. Those are always good to have. But there's just so many more needs. Like we talked about receiver needs. That's so important, especially with another quarterback that you have brought in. You need to have those receiver talents coming back, right? Defense, you still need a lot of work. Yes, I like their defense last year a little bit, but that's what wins you games is your defense for the most part, and you can't be giving up a lot of points. It's critical to have those. And we talk about losing our defensive captain, one of them, right, as the linebacker. We talk about Clayton Isbell is graduating. That is our tackle leader from the past year, right? These are big shoes to fill. And you have to, again, try to grab some of these guys, because not that you can't recruit a freshman to do it, or a guy that's currently on the roster can't step up and do it. It always helps when you could bring in these transfer guys. That's what it's set up for. That could help get you back to the promised land quicker. And again, there's so many needs, right? It's like you have to fill a lot of shoes to fill. And every day that you don't get guys, their phone's ringing from somebody else. It's a very, very competitive world out there. And I get that, our NIL isn't necessarily where we want it to be, but you have to find ways to get guys in the door. Without going on my tangent, I say it's a culture thing. You have to create a culture where a lot of people want to come play. And I've been telling these guys that over and over and over again, right? So you have to think about it, right? You think about Colorado, right? Primetime Deion Sanders. Yes, legend, right? Great coach, but people want to play for him because of the culture he's creating in Colorado, right? They see what they do and they want to be a part of it. So that's why guys are going there, right? You look at some of these other schools, right? You look at Charlotte now. We talked about how they just got 4 or 5 Power 5 transfers in the past day or two. How do they do that? Well, their head coach is rocking cutoffs. Doesn't matter the weather. It's cold. He's rocking cutoffs. He's fired up, has high energy guy. And so people want to play for him. And on top of that, right, once there's a trickle down effect, once you get one of the big names to go there, then a lot of the other big names from across the country start going there. They want to play together. They want to win, especially with the new playoff format that leads into it, where the group of 5 teams get in, all that stuff. And Coastal used to have that culture too, right? When you look at our good seasons, right? You look at what we were doing. We were rocking mullets versus Mormons. We had teal mullets. We had regular mullets. Jamie Chadwell was rocking a mullet. Teddy Gallagher had the bleach mullet, right? We were winning games, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. We were having the most fun in college football, right? That's why teams wanted to be there. And again, it might be me standing on my soapbox here, but a part of why people want to go to schools, yes, they want to win, but they also want to look good doing it, and they want to have fun doing it. right? And that's why you have to create these cultures. We had those locker room celebrations, right? All of that stuff. People saw them, was like, I want to be a part of that, and that helps your recruiting game, especially when, again, and if the NIL is not there and some of this other stuff's not there, what you can do is, if you have that culture, that environment, people just gravitate towards it. And again, that's what we need. A little bit of in order to continue that giveth. Because again, in order to stay relevant, especially in the Sun Belt Conference that now has a James Madison that can play with the big kids and all that stuff, they're only going to get better, and we have to get better as well if we want to, stay relevant. But enough of me. Jay, what do you think as far as the giveth of this portal?
First off, it's the wild, wild west out there. I mean, obviously, Matt Rule said it takes about $2 million to get a good starting quarterback, and we just don't have that kind of money to get a quarterback. I'm very grateful that we found Noah Kim. I mean, he's got the Power 5 experience that we need, and he's an older player, and he'll be of a mentor to our younger QBs and also our younger players on the team. And like I said, we got signing day coming up, and any day now, these 15 commits that we have, they could say, I'm going to this other school with a better opportunity and all that. So the staff's got to work extra hard this next week and a half to keep these kids motivated for the vision that they have for our program. And also, like you said, AJ, our culture. We need to get the culture back that we had in 2020 and 21 that won us all those football games, because I just don't see that now. I hope the staff's working on it, but I just don't see the culture that we had in 2020, 2021, where everybody knew of the Coast Carolina. It was kind of like a brand, and they just say, oh, we're just a regular old team now, and we need to work on that going forward.
I agree with all the points both of y'all have made. I think one of the biggest things positively that I've seen, not even necessarily the Noah Kim commit, but the guys practicing for the bowl game, they've done a lot of Hawaii-based theme practices. Yeah, the guys are doing the limbo. Like, they're just having a good old time. Tim Beck seems to, like, be coming into his own when it comes to like the coastal Carolina coaching culture that you need to have like fun down by the beach, doing the limbo, getting the guys hyped up. If you guys remember when we got our 7th or 6th win and we knew that we were going bowling in the locker room after the game, he did the bowling motion. These are things that he needs to do more, and it needs to be posted a lot more on social media and being shown more in games, right? We need to see the fun Coastal Carolina again, right? We have 4 back-to-back winning seasons going bowling. Let's make this fun. And also, for those who don't know, and we'll discuss this more next week when we break down the preview for San Jose State, we're currently 1-2 in bowl games. It's not sexy. I would rather not go 1-3, and that's something that I think having fun during this bowl game, going into the week and during the bowl game, we need to see the sidelines rock, and we need to see the guys hype. We need to see, what talent we still have on this roster going to next year, previous to the guys that we have committing, as Jay talked about during signing day, as well as the guys that we may get in the portal over the next couple days or even after the bowl game. But yeah, no, we need to see Fun Coastal again. We need to get this bowl game dub, and we need to show the world that Grayson leaving, that Brown leaving, that's not changing the culture. Chadwell leaves, Grayson leaves, Brown leaves, all the guys who have graduated in the last couple of years from our Coastal Carolina mullet phase, as we can call it, the McCall era mullet phase, whatever you want to go with. It's not going nowhere. Tim Beck can be fun. He just needs to do better at it. All right. We just need that publicly. I'd love nothing more than to see Vasco and Boda splitting reps and absolutely cooking San Jose State, and then the sidelines just rocking the whole game. That is the ideal Coastal Carolina bowl game this year. But yeah, no, hey, good points all across the board, gentlemen. We got a lot to look forward to. Hopefully the positive days are coming when it comes to the guys that we're getting in the portal, the commits that we're getting on signing day, and hopefully a bowl game W. Now let's transition over to our QB segment. We talked about this last week, but this is a little bit of an update based on everything that we've already talked about during this podcast. As stated earlier, McCall is now at NC State. Guest is still in the portal. Not sure what offers he currently has, but that is something we will update you on once he commits or is closer to committing somewhere. What we have available right now, Noah Kim, our transfer from Michigan State with 2 years of eligibility left. We have Ethan Vasco, the guy who started a lot of games last year. Blake Boda, who was redshirted last year, now has a chance to win his starting job this year. A big 3 quarterback battle as of right now. And we also have Dante Moore Jr., a 3-star quarterback with a lot of hype around him as a dual threat quarterback. Odds are he's probably going to get redshirted this season as Boda was last season, but who knows? Maybe he gets to be a true freshman starter. Who knows? I'm excited for our quarterback battle. And this is the guys that we currently have right now that we know we can look forward to. Other quarterbacks that have CCU offers. Right now, Coastal's not going to go out there and offer any new quarterbacks now that Noah Kim has committed. But we have multiple quarterbacks right now who have offers from us who could still accept, right? Guys, we're not going to go out there and revoke the offers from the quarterbacks we have. We have 3 quarterbacks that we know of that could still commit to Coastal and spice up this QB battle. Am I saying we need them to? No, but this is still something out there that I'd like Teal Nation to know about. Matthew Solka, he's the quarterback from Holy Cross. Most people are projecting him to go to JMU because his coach is the new head coach of JMU. Now that JMU's head coach has left to go to Indiana, something that we'll talk about a little bit later in another segment. Tyler Huff, Furman's quarterback, just recently after Furman got knocked out of the FCS playoffs, now recently hit the transfer portal and has offers from Coastal Carolina as well as other universities in state as well as out of state offers. And then Williams, who is the quarterback for Campbell. He was one of the first quarterbacks, I believe, that we publicly saw got an offer from Coastal Carolina. These are all 3 guys who currently haven't committed. If I had to say Solka or Sluka, however you say his name, from Holy Cross, odds are I think he's probably going to JMU. If not, he's probably going to a Power 5 school or somewhere that offers him more than what JMU can offer him, because why would he not go to JMU to be with his head coach? But Huff from Furman and Williams from Campbell, I think there is a chance, ladies and gentlemen, we could see 2 quarterback commits. We did lose 2 quarterbacks to the portal. It wouldn't be crazy to say that we could get 2 through. We're definitely not offering anyone else. So if I'm a betting man, if we were to get another quarterback, Huff and Williams would be one of the guys that we would end up getting. Otherwise, more than likely, the 4 guys that we already listed that we have are the ones that we're going to be rocking with in this quarterback battle for the 2024 season. Gentlemen, any other thoughts on our quarterback situation as well as the potential guys who may also commit?
I just know for spring ball, it's going to be very important. Obviously, we don't know when Kim's coming in. Is he coming in for the spring? Is he enrolling second semester? Will be here in the summer. So if he's not here in the spring, it'll be between Boda and Vasco to see who's going to take number 1 reps. Obviously, it's going to tell a lot come spring game time to see who's out there with the 1s and 2s. Then obviously summer and fall camp to see who takes the lead of the QB1 and who we're going to be behind to start the season will be big.
AJ, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you guys basically covered it. Yeah, there are other guys with offers, but for me, I'm comfortable with the room we have because it's the whole give and take of thing, right? It's like if one of these quarterbacks come in, one of these quarterbacks might leave. If they see that they might get beat out or they're going to drop in a depth chart, right? They might hit the eject button and go somewhere else, right? That's the world we live in. So it's back and forth for me. It's whether or not I think if one of these quarterbacks come in, if they're going to be better and if they're going to be more used to us than maybe one of the guys there. Personally, I'm comfortable with this quarterback room. I think there's a lot of talent in this room. Is it the same room concept we had last year? Of course not. But I think that this is a room I'm comfortable with. Now, again, it all depends on how these guys actually look, right? How is Noah Kim gonna play now that he might get full responsibility of first string, right? If not, it might be Vasco. Does Vasco beat him out? Right. We've seen him bits and pieces throughout the season. He's probably, as of right now, our number 1 guy, right? With Gaston McCall leaving. Right. So the keys might be his. And what is he going to do to defend that? And then again, Blake Boda is an interesting name. Again, we've been hyping him up a little bit. We think this kid is talented. Can he beat out these other 2 guys, though? Right. It's going to be interesting to me. And I think that I'd like having competition's a good thing. Right. You'd rather have competition for good quarterbacks than just what at best of the worst case, right? Some of these schools have that problem where they can't get anybody. It's just run some guys out there or mix and match guys and then just try to fix the problem that way. I think that I like our quarterback room, but again, I'm going to touch quickly on the fact that, okay, quarterback room's good for me, let's go work on everything else because that we need everything else. So I think that's the biggest takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a good quarterback room. If we get another guy like Huffer Williams, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to be excited, but yeah, AJ also brings up a good point. If one of those guys does commit, there's a chance we might lose a legend like Vasco or Boda. Like Vasco did play really well. Unfortunately, yes, JMU game was not beautiful, but a lot of different players could have played better. And Vasco didn't necessarily have a really bad game. It was just a poor team effort across the board. And like I've been saying, and AJ pointed this out, I was like, Blake Boda could be the guy. I've heard nothing but good things from people within the program. And I know Jay said a couple things to me about people he's talked to within the program that have heard good things about him as well. Something to talk about. Jay and I, when we were at Coastal Carolina back in 2019, I believe, we were in the Sino Grill Dining Hall. I didn't have really any connections at all on the team. We're RSM majors, as many of you who have been listening for a while may know. We were talking about the good hype we've been hearing in Grayson McCall back in 2019 when he was a redshirt freshman, only took a couple snaps in like later fourth quarters. Hey, I did not say that he was going to be the greatest of all time Coastal Carolina quarterbacks, but I was like, I think this guy could be the starter. And Jay's heard good things about him too, and it happened. So I'm not trying to say that Boda might be the next McCall, but hey, listen, if he wins the quarterback battle and is the starter week 1, do not be surprised if he cooks. I'm just putting that out there, ladies and gentlemen. But hey, that goes back to exactly what AJ was saying. We have an interesting quarterback room this year, assuming no one else commits. Kim, the Power 5 transfer, Vasco, the guy with the most reps, Bodo, the guy with hype around him. It will be interesting to see who's 1, 2, and 3. Anything could happen, and that is something to look forward to. But trickling back to the give them the take of the portal, we need receivers for them. So I really hope we can get out there, get them receivers and offensive line. So that way, not only are they safe in the pocket, but they also have people to throw to. So it will be interesting to see our quarterback situation. We will definitely talk more about them if somebody comes in or somebody leaves. And we'll definitely talk more about them as spring ball comes around, as AJ and Jay both mentioned. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the Teal Nation, let's transfer over to our next segment. Last week, if you watched, we talked about our bowl predictions in a segment. We each predicted 3 different possibilities of like who we might play and what bowl game we might be in. None of us were close. None of us picked that we were going to be in the Hawaii Bowl, and none of us picked that we were going to be playing San Jose State. So no winners here. I guess none of us are really upset. Oh well. But yeah, no, it was an interesting segment for us to have. It was fun. We'll definitely do it next year. See if anyone gets close. But it's a tough prediction to make, right? You gotta get right who we're playing or what bowl we're in, and we got neither. So it will be interesting to see what happens next year. So let's transition over to the next segment, State of the Sun Belt, a new segment that we'll bring up once in a while when major things happen across the board for all the different Sun Belt conference programs, whether we get a new team into the conference, whether a team leaves to go somewhere else, coaches, etc. So if you've been paying attention to Sun Belt football or even FBS football of recent, you will see that not only did JMU's coach go to Indiana not too long after being the best program in the Sun Belt, as they like to proclaim themselves before the App State win. And even I have seen many JMU fans even say that they deserve to be the Sun Belt champion this year, even though they lost to App State. We could get into so many technicalities about that, but I don't even care to address it any further. But it is very hilarious, in my opinion, that their coach bailed on them right after the season that they had and the hype they had around it, and how Barstool was covering them, and how they had College Game Day. So crazy as it is, they lost their coach. But one thing is, he went to a Power 5 school. But so at the end of the day, that does look good on the Sun Belt, right? When your coaches are leaving and going to Power 5 schools, it looks really good on the conference, even though I'm pretty sure JMU fans, as you've probably seen, are not too happy about that. They have, however, gotten Holy Cross as head coach, as we discussed earlier, as their new head coach. And I'm going to be honest with you, while I'm a Coastal fan, while we're all Coastal fans, while this is a Coastal Carolina podcast, I think that was a really good hire. I think they're going to see success with him, and that's why I'm saying I think we're going to continue to have battles with them. I will say, however, I don't think we're going to get our ass kicked by them anymore. I think it will be really close, or if JMU beats us, it'll be probably by 10. But that really just depends on, can we get some more talent through the portal and through commits. Keep it on the same track, but slightly switching gears. Guys like Jamie Chadwell, as we've discussed on this podcast, and many others of Coastal Carolina Nation have discussed. He obviously went to Liberty, had this undefeated season where they played absolutely no one, and their strength of schedule was like 133 at the very bottom of the barrel of FBS football. But he still got the offer, and he left to another Group of Five school. And that, ladies and gentlemen, does not look good on the Sun Belt Conference when you have coaches leaving to go to other Group of Five schools instead of going to Power Five. I know fans of Coastal Carolina would still not be happy at Chadwell if he went to the Power Five level, but at least we could say our coach went to the Power Five level, right? This is something we've talked about before, but it's very unfortunate. And it happened again this year. Summerall from Troy, after winning back-to-back Sun Belt championships, beating us and then App State, went to Tulane, another Group of Five school. This does not look good. I think this should be almost panic button mode for the Sun Belt Conference as a whole. We can't keep losing our top coaches to other Group of Five schools. Like I said, if your coach, like the JMU coach, goes to the Power Five level, that's not bad at all. That's good. You go out, hire another coach. It looks really good on the Sun Belt as a whole, as well as that program. We can't keep having this happen. I'm telling you right now, if something does not change, we will continue to lose coaches to other Group of Five level universities, not in the Sun Belt. So what needs to change to get the Sun Belt as a whole to keep their best coaches? Well, number one, we need a better TV deal. The Pac-12's gone and they struggle to get a TV deal. Arguably, we are the fifth best conference. I know people want to say otherwise, but when it comes to the strength of schedule, the teams you're playing, we have 12 of 14 teams in the bowl games, meaning they're 6-6 or higher. We are one of the best conferences right now, other than like maybe the SEC, when it comes to the most teams or most teams bowl eligible. So we need better TV deals. Why? We're playing a lot of good games. Sun Belt matchups between two Sun Belt teams are really good football games. We've seen a lot of them this year, even if they're not Coastal Carolina involved. I've watched multiple games. If you watch the JMU App State game, that was crazy fun. That was like an electric finish. Coastal, App State, and JMU right now, as well as a few other schools, but those big three are carrying the conference with the amount of views you're getting TV wise through like Hulu or ESPN Plus. Troy is right up there as well. But why do we not have a better TV deal where more people can watch the Sun Belt games? If you look at your Thursday night games or your weeknight games where Sun Belt teams are playing on ESPN, it gets a lot of views. People don't turn it off. It's not like when the MAC games go on ESPN and nobody watches them. Sun Belt games pull in a lot of viewership. Somebody within the Sun Belt higher ups needs to get on this. We need to get TV deals going. We need to get that revenue stream going back into these universities so we can keep these coaches. Another thing is, we've been talking about bowl games. We need better bowl game tie-ins. We need our Sun Belt teams to play better teams and in better bowl locations. So that way, when we win our bowl games, more people take notice. When they see these bowl game wins, when they watch them, they're more interesting to watch. This is a big thing that I'm stressing, ladies and gentlemen. Sure, there might not be somebody watching this podcast that can actually make these kind of decisions go through, but we truly need to, as Teal Nation and Sunbelt Nation, we need to push forward this agenda of getting the Sunbelt a way better TV deal so we can all get recognized more and get the revenue streams back into our programs and become that true fifth power conference, even if we stay at the Group of Five level. Jay, what else do you have on this topic?
All I gotta say is Commissioner Gill in the conference office, they gotta do something. We gotta get better bowl tie-ins. I mean, we want to send these student athletes and coaches and their families to good locations for the holidays and not just the same locations year after year. And also, we need to play good competition, higher competition, as you said. So when we win, they take notice and they want to learn more about our school, maybe commit to our school, and also drive our revenue and also our TV exposure to the whole country. AJ, what you got on it?
Yeah, you guys hit most it basically, nail on the head. But my piece on it is just I think again, like you said, Hunter, this is we are probably some of this probably the best group of five conference. I think across the board, right? When you take all the teams, all the programs, lay them all out and compare them, it's probably the best group of five conference, especially with all the realignment going on. And that's why the talent pool is so big, and that's why the coaching hires are so big, right? They see that the coaches that could have success in the Sun Belt are better coaches. And again, yes, every once in a while they get those Power Five offers, and again, you can't compete with those in recruiting and with coaching offers. You just can't compete with the Power Five, right? Financially and just atmosphere, right? The teams you play against, competition, TV deals, bowl game times, or all the other stuff you can't compete. But when you're on the same group of five level, you should be able to compete and you should be able to maintain your coaches um, and your talent too, because we see it happen with talent, right? People go from one group of five to other group of five schools and they bounce around. And everybody should want to be in the Sun Belt Conference. And again, it goes down to what you guys were saying, right? TV deals. Yeah, we get games on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. And I think the only thing that Sun Belt teams can control is they have to take advantage of those games that they get, right? They have to sell out stadiums, right? Make it environments that when people watch it, they go, whoa, right? I mean, I think for me, right, part of the reason I went to Coastal was watching, I went there in person, I saw it, long story. And then in 2016, I remember watching them on television, their baseball team, the national championship, making that run. And you see that atmosphere, and you're like, "Whoa, you want to go to a school like that, right?" And then a lot of people, a lot of the new freshmen now coming in, have seen our football team on television, right? Or like some new freshmen have been telling me now that we have graduated that they remember watching that BYU Coastal game, right, on television and stuff like that. And then they could just see the atmosphere, they could feel it, and they're like, "Whoa, I want to go to that school." Right? So you have to take advantage of those moments when you get them. And again, we just talked about before we record this episode with the bowl tie-ins, right? Okay, some of them are good, right? Like we like some of the tie-ins we have, but like also the Birmingham Bowl. I can't say a bunch of people are thrilled to go play in the Birmingham Bowl, and like some of the other tie-ins that some conferences have. Um, but just in general, right? You guys talked over most of it. We're not gonna beat a dead horse here. But it is definitely something to look into, especially because every bowl season they throw out those graphic like every bowl game. I don't know if you guys know, but I see it all the time where they have every conference laid out in their records, right? Of what those teams from each conference, what their records are doing, right? And the Sun Belt's usually up there, right? I mean, we're talking about we have 12 or 14 teams in the bowl game in some sort of a bowl game, right? With the only two being ULM and Southern Miss, right? That's pretty good. And then now again, you also have to win those games, right? Again, if we're winning those bowl games against the better teams from other conferences, again, it just proves a point of how good the Sun Belt really is. But yeah, I mean, I think there's always improvements to be made, and it's just taking advantage of the opportunities when we have them.
Yeah, absolutely. And keeping on the same topic, ladies and gentlemen, let's roll over to our Sun Belt Bowl game pick'ems. So, if you've been keeping up with the Keeping It Teal podcast, you would know that AJ not only won the Sun Belt regular season pick'ems, but he also won the Sun Belt Conference Championship prediction pick'em. So AJ has a chance to run the table and win the Sun Belt Bowl pick'ems. We have 12 games. Whoever has the best overall record by the end of the bowl season for the Sun Belt games wins that title as well. Is it going to be AJ? Well, odds would say maybe it is, but who knows? You have a bunch of non-Sun Belt teams playing all Sun Belt teams. Obviously, no matchups will be Sun Belt versus Sun Belt, so this will be interesting to see. And we also will do our New Year's Six pick'ems on our next podcast. So let's get the ball rolling. No reason to wait. Gentlemen, we're starting with the Myrtle Beach Bowl, Georgia Southern versus Ohio. AJ, who are you taking?
Before I make this pick, I just want to put a disclaimer out here. I think for all of us, these picks are incredibly hard, not because it's just two good teams playing, but there's so many outside factors, right? Transfer portal cheese is the main reason, right? Is like a lot of people are in the portal and they're not going to play, or if they're going to the draft, they're going to sit out the game. They're not going to play the game, or coaching changes, so the coaches aren't there. So there's just so many factors that go into this to where it makes it almost impossible, right? Unless we broke down every team and saw who exactly is transferring from every team and then compare it, it's like it's impossible to do. So these are like completely shot in the dark picks. And I'm sure the other two feel the same way, where it's just like, I'm looking at these games. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I think in this Myrtle Beach Bowl, right, Georgia Southern versus Ohio. Okay, I think Ohio might be the better team here. But again, then I have to look at if there's people transferring, who's not playing, who is playing, right, all the other stuff, and it makes things way more difficult. With that being said, Myrtle Beach Bowl, I'm going with the Ohio Bobcats in this one. Again, tough pick, but Georgia Southern had a really good start to the year, had a little bit rough end to the year. I'm sure they're not super happy to be playing back in Myrtle Beach on the surf turf. Yes, it is comfortable and they've been there before, but I'm sure they're not. They've gotten beaten a couple times on that turf, so they're probably not huge fans of it. And I think they're going to get beat again on it by the Bobcats.
Jay, who do you got in this matchup?
I'm gonna have to start out strong, and I'm gonna go with Georgia Southern. I mean, they have veteran QB Davis Brin, and I see them riding high, finishing the season strong, and the Sun Belt being back-to-back Myrtle Beach Bowl champions. So I'm taking Georgia Southern in this one.
Well, I was hoping Jay would take Ohio because I have information that everyone in this podcast should know. Ohio's really good starting quarterback has entered the transfer portal and committed, I believe, today to Indiana. So they will be without their stud starting quarterback. I think Ohio gets absolutely rolled by Georgia Southern in this game. I don't know who their backup quarterback is, but listen, if you looked at Ohio before this season, no bueno. So I'd be willing to stick with the trend and say Ohio is going to get absolutely rolled in this bowl game by Georgia Southern. Good luck, AJ. Now we move on to the New Orleans Bowl. Jackson State, a team we played earlier this season, versus Louisiana. AJ, who are you picking in this one?
Yes, like you said, we played Jacksonville State earlier this year, and they gave us a run for our money for sure. And then this Louisiana team again, it's like one of those teams that I don't know what to expect from them. It's another 6-6 team on the year, so they've had their ups and downs. It's been a rough year for them. I like how this Jacksonville State team looks though, so I'm going to go with the Gamecocks in this one.
Jay, who are you picking?
I'm gonna follow suit to Jacksonville State. I mean, first year they're making a bowl game, and I just can't trust Louisiana. I mean, they're up and down. You don't know what Louisiana team's going to show up. So I'm going to go with AJ here and go with the Gamecocks as well.
Alrighty, I'm going to go with the strategy pick. Like AJ pointed out earlier, a lot of these games, it's going to be hard to predict because of, like AJ said, the transfer portal cheese. As well as, a lot of these teams, it's really hard to stack these matchups, even when you take that factor out. So I'm going to go with ULL to see if I can try to get ahead of the curve with these pick'ems. All right, let's move on to the Cure Bowl. Miami, Ohio versus App State. AJ, who you got in this one?
Short and sweet, anybody but App State. But I actually like Miami, Ohio in this one because they are the MAC champions, right? Toledo might have been, they were the better record, better team, lost the MAC championship to Miami, Ohio. So I actually might like Miami, Ohio in this one. I think MAC strong. They're going to be prepared for this one. So give me Miami, Ohio.
Jay, what about you?
After last year's disappointment of them losing in the Boca Raton Bowl to Western Kentucky and dropping their first ever bowl game, I don't see App State dropping their second consecutive bowl game, so I have the Boonies winning this one.
Alrighty. I've been to Miami, Ohio's campus, a very small campus in Ohio, but a lot of crazy loyal fans, and their football team has not been good in a while. They just won the conference and beat Toledo in the conference championship, where this Toledo team was really good. So, I mean, hey, hats off to Miami, Ohio. I think this team is a pretty damn near good team, and I think that we're in for a surprise where Miami beats App State by more than 10 points. I'd say lock that down if you're a bettor. Get ready for Miami, Ohio to cement that they are the team that's going to run the MAC for the next couple of years. All right. Famous Toastery Bowl this year only in Charlotte, North Carolina. Western Kentucky versus Old Dominion. AJ, who you taking?
Again, another tough one for me. I do like the toppers in this one. I mean, I like Western Kentucky in general. They're always like a tough team to beat. They're always a team that's difficult. Old Dominion's also one of those teams. But I think I'm going with the Hilltoppers.
Jay, who are you taking in the famous Toastery Bowl?
I agree with AJ. You don't know ODU and Western Kentucky. They're always a tough team out. So give me the Hilltoppers as well in the famous Toast Street Bowl.
All righty. Fun fact for everybody, if you haven't watched our previous podcast where we talked about Western Kentucky, Chad Staggs, our former defensive coordinator, before going over and becoming the defensive coordinator for Georgia State, he was for I think a couple weeks the linebackers coach at Western Kentucky when Tim Beck came over and cleared staff and started with his new staff. Chad Staggs' first job offer after that was to be the linebackers coach of Western Kentucky before Georgia State came calling and brought him over, which I do think was a pretty good decision on their end because it paid off for them when they played us. So, hey, either way. But yeah, interesting fun fact there for you guys for Western Kentucky. But hey, I'm not taking them. We're rolling Old Dominion. Why? Because they're crazy this year. They're weird. It makes no sense. None of the games it really adds up. So hey, why bet against them? And also another game where I could potentially get above the curve with these guys, or I could just be burying myself. But either way, I've also been to Old Dominion's campus, so maybe that's another reason I've been to these campuses, and that's where I'm taking. But hey, to the guys that I know up in Old Dominion, let's see these guys get the W this week. Frisco Bowl, UTSA versus Marshall. AJ, who you taking?
This Marshall team is very interesting to me. They just seem untrustworthy. Like this is a team that all year has been like off and on. Can't trust them. So that, for that reason, I'm going with the Roadrunners of Utsa.
Jay, who you taking?
I agree with AJ. Marshall's up and down. I mean, they haven't been the same since they had their big home win, sold out crowd over the ACC member Virginia Tech Hokies. So give me the Roadrunners as well against Marshall.
I'm also taking UTSA, one, because they're a pretty damn near good team and have been fairly consistent in the last couple of years, but also because, like the guy said, like while Old Dominion has been crazy and shaky, they've had some good games. Marshall's just been really bad after Jared Guest and Vasco kind of shook hands and took them down for our homecoming. That was like a 2v1 beatdown. But hey, listen, I got to rock with UTSA here. I don't see a world where Marshall even has a chance in this game. And we're moving on to our biased bowl game pick 'em. Coastal versus San Jose State in the Hawaii Bowl. We're definitely going to cover it next week. Guys, don't give details about this game. Let's save that for the next pod, but go ahead and let's pick the game. AJ, who you taking?
Yeah. All right. Short and sweet. Shots by 90.
Jay?
Short and sweet. Tim Beck closes the season strong and gets us a win in Hawaii.
Yep, I'm also going to be taking our shots, obviously. Hey, I'm hoping for us to do a 2-2 split in the 4-year span of back-to-back bowl games. See the Shants have a fun time in Hawaii, get the commits rolling in, get the transfer portal commits going in. We go back to being fun coastal and hopefully get to a bowl game next season, get a 5 years in a row. And then if we can get a win in next year in a bowl game, we'd be 3-2 with a winning record in bowl season, and that would be a fun thing to have. I'd rather us not get buried in a hole where next year's win in a bowl game, if we did, would only have us at 2-3. That, I don't know, that just sounds disgusting to me. So all right, we all picked Coastal. Let's move on to the Birmingham Bowl. That's the bowl we played in last year, right, gentlemen? All right, so this year's Birmingham Bowl is actually really interesting. Troy, our Sun Belt Conference champions, versus Duke without Riley Leonard, who has now went over and committed to Notre Dame. AJ, who you taking in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm going with the Troy Trojans. I've been a fan of them all year. Duke has been a good team this year, but like you kind of hinted at, their starting quarterback Riley Leonard has hit the portal and is going to Notre Dame. And along with it, I don't know if you guys know this, but either way, you're going to find out anyway. They have lost a lot of talent to the portal as well behind him. A lot of guys have hit that eject button. Poor Duke. Yeah, so for that reason, again, you don't know who's playing. You don't know what's left over there. It might be shambles. And this Troy team, again, wants to continue to prove a point. So I'm going with the Trojans.
Jay, who you taking?
With this bowl game being in the great state of Alabama and Troy, with Duke not knowing who's going to play, who's under center, and their coach also leaving for Aggieland, give me the Troy Trojans winning the Birmingham Bowl, as obviously they always perform well in the state of Alabama when they play.
Yeah, I think this is a hard pick. I'm going to go against the curve. I'm going to pick Duke, and here's why. Uh, both teams probably won't be as motivated because they lost their coaches, right? Um, Troy has lost less guys in the portal than JMU and Coastal, but they still have lost a handful of guys, some of which might go to Tulane because their coach left at Tulane, as discussed earlier. But I think that team is probably down in the dumps after winning back-to-back championships. I don't think they have anything else to prove realistically. And I don't know how motivated they will be. You look at a Duke team that just lost their quarterback to Notre Dame. I think a lot of guys are going to try to prove that, hey, we are not going to go back to being a Duke football team that can't win many games. They want to prove that they're here to stay in the ACC and have so much more to prove, even though they lost their coach as well. I think when it comes down to it, Duke will overpower this team. And even if Troy has better talent, I think Duke will have more motivation. All right, let's go over to the Camilla Bowl. Arkansas State versus Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, our first ever dub in a bowl game was against them. So this will be an interesting pick to take. AJ, who are you taking?
This is an interesting one for me. I've been picking against them all year, but give me the Red Puppies in this one. I feel like they want it. I feel like they need it. And I also just don't know that much about Northern Illinois. I know we gave them the work 2 years ago in the Cure Bowl, but that's about all I got. But I think Arkansas State again. I have picked against them multiple times, and they proved me wrong multiple times. So I'm gonna see if they can help me out in this one. I'm going with them.
Jay, what do you got for this matchup?
As AJ said, we all picked against the Red Puppies for what they did to us when we played them in Jonesboro, but also I'm going to take the Red Puppies as well because I don't too know much about NIU and the MAC, and they're usually not a very good team in bowl season, so give me the Red Puppies.
All right. I am going to be picking NIU, who this season they finished they finished second in the West. So they were towards the top. The team above them obviously was Toledo, who lost the conference championship. While I don't know too much about them, I was slightly aware that they did not have a bad season. One could argue by the way some of their players played this year, including their quarterback, that they were better than the team that we beat in the bowl game. So I'm going to actually hammer it home that not only will NIU win, but NIU will absolutely beat the crap out of Arkansas State. And they also are dogs. They're the Huskies. So it's going to be a dog fight, if you will. All right, on to the Armed Forces Bowl, JMU versus Air Force. AJ, who you taking?
This one's interesting to me. JMU obviously proven a point. However, they're missing some guys, big guys, their quarterback and their head coach, which is unfortunate for them. But again, they want to continue to prove the point of, hey, we deserve to be here, and we're better than everybody, us versus everybody. And Air Force was a team that through the first 8 weeks of the season said they might be the best Group of 5 team. They might be the New Year's Six team in the Group of 5 level because they started 8-0. And then people might say, well, then what happened to them? Well, they went 0-4 down the stretch. So it's been a really good start, really rough finish for them. So that's why it makes things interesting to me. I as much as Air Force I think wants this and needs this, I just don't know if it's the motivation's there. I just don't know if they have it in them. And again, I feel like just James Madison is too good even without some of these pieces missing. And again, they want to continue to prove that point of, hey, listen, we deserve to be here, and we are the best Group of 5 team as they claim. So I'm going with James Madison.
Jay, what do you got on this one?
Give me Hammer home. Obviously, they got the motivation. I mean, as I say, Coach Sig left them to go to Indiana, so they're going to have a lot of motivation. They want to end the season strong, so hammer home the Madison Dukes over Air Force.
It looks like I'm picking against the pack a lot. So this is going to play out in one of two ways. I'm either going to be absolutely beat down with my record, or I'm going to absolutely cook this bowl season. Here's my reasoning why. I think they make a lot of good points. I think JMU, even after this crazy transfer portal, does have the better roster. Here's the issue. JMU lost their coach. their starting quarterback, as well as a lot of different starters on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of these guys haven't taken many snaps. So while I think they will be significantly motivated to get this dub and go out there with a lot of high energy, there's no guarantee most of these guys will actually be good as starters, right? Some of these guys on the defensive side of the ball have had a couple reps here and there, like the ones who are replacing guys who hit the portal. So there's not a lot of consistency there. They haven't played long games. Yes, the guys who are sticking around are probably going to absolutely have phenomenal games, but I think across the board, there's no guarantee that the entire team will have a good game. Air Force, as AJ pointed out, did not look as great down the stretch and had, I think, while they might not have something to prove, I think they definitely don't want to finish the season with another loss, right? You don't want to go out with an L. You had a bad end of the season. You want to just walk out of here with a positive, ending to a not so great season. It's kind of like where we're at as Coastal Carolina, right? That ending was absolutely brutal. For a chance to go to the Sun Belt Conference Championship and get absolutely beat down at home by JMU, we're just hoping to claim a bowl game victory, right? And then continue to build up the hype for next season. I think that the same goes for Air Force. I think they want to go out, finish off the season with a W, and I think they'll have enough talent still left who have started this year to be able to come out with a win. I think this will be a close one, a fairly close game, maybe a win by a field goal or less. But yeah, I'm taking Air Force. Now we're moving on to the Potato Bowl, Georgia State versus Utah State. AJ, what are you taking?
I'm going with the Panthers in this one. Again, this is another battle made as some of these bowl games are. Reason why I know Utah State's quarterback's not playing, and yes, you were going to say yes. Well, Georgia State people also aren't playing. Again, it's basically a flip of a coin for me. But I just have an inkling that the Panthers are going to be hungry for some potatoes, so I'm going with the Panthers.
Jay, what about you?
Give me the Sun Belt in this one, Georgia State. I mean, as AJ said, Utah State's QB's not playing, and they didn't perform well as they usually do this season. So give me the Panthers as well.
All righty. If you've been paying attention to my picks, ladies and gentlemen of the Teal Nation, I've been kind of 50-50 split between non-Sunbelt teams and Sunbelt teams. And at the end of the day, the Sunbelt Conference is the best group of 5 conference and one of the better conferences in college football outside of the SEC and Big Ten, which I'm not crazy. They're clearly better conferences, but one could argue maybe in the near future, the ACC, with the way things are going, might not be too much better than your Sunbelt, especially if teams like Florida State and Clemson dip out, like some of the rumors may say. But yeah, no, that leads me to say that I'm going to stick with the boys, Georgia State over Utah State, nothing more. Let's move over to the 68 Ventures Bowl with South Alabama taking on Eastern Michigan. AJ, what do you got?
I've been claiming that this South Alabama team, the Jaguars, have been the biggest sleeper for me in the Sun Belt this year. As far as you haven't really heard from them, but they've been taking care of business. I know they finished 6-6, but they have won a lot of tough games. Yeah, they've lost to the obvious teams, but this has been the biggest sleeper for me in the Sun Belt this year. And I think that they cap it off with a nice little bowl win in the 68 Ventures Bowl.
Jay, who are you taking?
As I'm going with AJ as well, I'm going with South Alabama. I mean, 6-6, they're usually a little bit better than that. I mean, they did beat Oklahoma State this year, but I see them closing them season out with a bowl win. So give me South Alabama as the 68 Ventures Bowl champion.
I'm rocking with the guys on this one for 2 reasons. Number one, South Alabama finished the season even with a very, very not so good season for them. They finished as a top 50 offense. All right. They might be just slightly outside the top 25. I know at multiple points of the season they were a top 25 offense, but I don't think they are anymore. But they're guaranteed a top 50 offense in this country, which is crazy, which means they have a better offense than a significant amount of Power 5 schools. So I think they're going to cook. But not only that, for those who haven't paid attention to Eastern Michigan, sure, they have a bowl game, but they finished 4-4 in conference in the MAC being one of the worst, in my opinion, group of 5 conferences out there. This team just barely scraped by with a bowl eligibility season. So I'm looking for South Alabama to go in there and ring up a 50 burger on them, potentially also maybe a 50-10 type game. Sorry, Eastern Michigan fans, but it's not going to look good for you in the 68 Ventures Bowl. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the Teal Nation, keeping it Teal podcast fan base. We're moving on to the final bowl game for the Sun Belt Conference in our Sun Belt Conference bowl game pick'ems, the First Responder Bowl. Texas State versus Rice, a battle of Texas teams. AJ, who you taking in the Wild Wild West?
It is, in fact, the Wild Wild West. Again, this is another flip of a coin game. Texas State again, really good in the beginning, right? We thought this was a team that could win the West, and then not so much. And then this is a Rice team that again has been average on the year. But you know what? I'm gonna back the Bobcats in this one. Right, it's their first bowl game in however long, a very long time. I think that it just means more to them. Right, Rice is there, probably a lot, and it probably doesn't mean as much to them. I think it just means more for Texas State, so I think they're going to have that extra motivation. I think they take care of business.
Jay, who you picking?
Obviously, Texas State being in their first bowl game in a while, and they had a good start to the season, but were disappointed down the end. I see the Bobcats eating up the Rice Owls and hammer home the Bobcats with their first win in the First Responder Bowl.
For me, I don't know too much about Rice. Screw it. I'm going with Rice just for the sake that they have a veteran quarterback. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Sun Belt Conference Bowl game pick'ems. Teal Nation, let's switch over to our next segment. This is a segment that we've been doing the last couple of podcasts. AJ and Jay have been keeping up with the shots. Gentlemen, what's been going on with our other Chanticleer sports programs?
Obviously, our volleyball team, they were in the first round of the NCAA tournament and unfortunately got swept by Western Kentucky, so their season concluded, but not after a regular season championship and also a tournament championship. So congratulations, Coach Loswick and the volleyball team. We look forward to seeing them back in the HTC Center next fall.
Yeah, so for the basketball teams here, women's basketball is now 5-5 as an update, as they've been playing a lot of non-conference Carolina teams, basically. And so they've had a little bit of a rough stretch, but I think that they've had a somewhat tough schedule. And at the end of the day, like I said, conference play is all that really kind of matters. For the most part, they do play Jacksonville State on 12/17, so that is Sunday. And then they play Chattanooga on 12/20. And those are going to be the last two games before they get into conference play. So hopefully they're looking to at least cap off their non-conference play at least 500, maybe above that. Now, on the men's basketball side of things, we got some big-time news from our last episode. Hunter, I think, spoke it into fruition here, is Cliff Ellis announced his retirement right after his right around his birthday. Again, we talked about how this was the last year on his contract anyway, and we obviously just based on his age and everything didn't think he was gonna get an extension. Nothing against him, but we thought that this was going to be it for him anyway. And I guess something came up where he decided that it was time for him to step down. So he announced his retirement. Again, we'd like to, I think, all thank him for again what he's done for their basketball program. There's a ton of accolades, and he's definitely helped the basketball program out a ton. He's got us basically where we are today. So again, we are very appreciative of what he's done, and we are also optimistic for what's going to come with this program in the future. For now, associate head coach Benny Moss is going to step up and kind of continue the coaching duties from here on out while they look for another new coach. And then maybe at some point when we get updates on maybe new head coach hires, we will obviously keep your finger on the pulse with that one. And as far as what the team's doing since then, Benny Moss is in his first game coaching, lost to Wofford in a tough one. So now the men's basketball team is now 3-6 overall. Again, they are still battling non-conference play. They got College of Charleston on 12/18. And then they have North Carolina A&T on 12/21. And then that will also, both those teams will then take a little break for Christmas, and then they'll kick off conference play. So again, as far as these basketball teams go, again, women's basketball, we are optimistic about them. The men's team, we are optimistic about what the future holds. Although this current season is again, who knows what's going to happen. I just don't think, in my personal opinion, the talent's there in order to really compete. But hopefully, again, we can turn this program around, right, and get it back on the track here. But that's it as far as keeping up with these teams. And we're getting closer, ladies and gentlemen. I know Jay and I are super pumped. We're getting closer and closer to baseball season, Gilly Tour, farewell tour. We will, again, keep your finger on the pulse with that stuff right after, basically probably holidays and stuff. We'll get it all kicked off and get you locked in for this baseball season.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our 8th episode of the Keeping It Teal podcast. We look forward to discussing the San Jose State Bowl game in Hawaii with y'all next week, as well as any possible new transfer portal news. Hopefully more giveth and no taketh, but we will see as the next week of Coastal Carolina athletics concludes. Overall, great podcast. Excited to see how these bowl games go, and hopefully the Sun Belt Conference proves through these bowl game victories that they are truly the best, not only Group of Five conference, but the fifth best conference in college football FBS. Thank you for listening to our latest episode of the Keeping It Teal podcast. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube, X, Instagram, and Spotify to keep up to date with all things Teal. Until next time, good night, Teal Nation.